Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I was delighted to be able to do this talk in person at Dundonald Castle on Tuesday, the 20th of August, but I'm re-recording it here so that people who unfortunately missed the event will get the chance to have a look at what we were talking about. So my name is Lauren Welsh and I am a member of the management team at Dundonald Castle. So I work for the charity that is the Friends of Dundonald Castle, and alongside this I've also been studying for my Masters in Archaeology. Today I am going to be sharing with you the research project I've been working on for the last few months. And this research has been undertaken as part of my dissertation project, although I'm hoping to continue to research and create the resource, which is the digital map beyond that. The project that I am working on, I've called Hidden Prehistoric Ayrshire. I'll get into a little bit more detail about why it's called that in the next slides. But specifically, this dissertation project that I'm working on is looking at unveiling Central Ayrshire's prehistory and promoting open access to archaeological data regarding some of the sites. So as somebody that was born in Ayrshire, grew up in Ayrshire, and also somebody who has a deep interest in prehistory, I often find myself really frustrated by the scarcity of accessible information regarding anything really archaeological in Ayrshire, but particularly Ayrshire's prehistoric past. The more I learned, the more I realised how much remained hidden, often buried in grey literature of excavation reports or obscured by paywalls. It became really difficult to learn more about these sites. The term hidden also refers to the fact that a lot of these sites are no longer visible at ground level. So there are a couple of connotations there and why the project is called Hidden Prehistoric Ayrshire. The lack of detailed accessible information has made it really difficult to piece together the fascinating history of these prehistoric sites and finds that have been uncovered during the research. This frustration is one of the main reasons that's fueled my determination to bring Ayrshire's prehistoric heritage into the spotlight. It really does deserve to get shouted about, it's really interesting, but also make it accessible to both the public as well as highlighting its significance to future researchers, hopefully, as well. Ayrshire has long been overlooked as a place of interest in archaeology, despite numerous notable prehistoric discoveries of both artefacts and sites. Ayrshire has a really rich agricultural history, and as such, it's often believed that most of the good archaeology has fell foul to the plough and any infrastructure associated with this. It's not true though, we still have some amazing stuff to discover and stuff that has been discovered over the last 100, 200 years or so. Past efforts to document the prehistoric finds of Ayrshire, such as the works by John Smith back in the late 19th century, have not received the attention or the impact that they deserved. And as a result, there really is a widespread lack of awareness and accessibility regarding Ayrshire's prehistoric past. Much of this information, as we've already mentioned, remains buried or hidden within grey literature of excavation documents and reports. And even when this data is published, it often lacks detail and especially supporting imagery, which can make these documents really dry and quite unengaging as well. The purpose of this dissertation is to set the groundwork for the Hidden Prehistoric Ayrshire project by identifying the sites that are available in this area, documenting them and raising awareness of these sites and finds. So some of the key aims of this project are to identify the prehistoric sites and finds in Ayrshire, to assess the current state of information available on these sites, to create an accessible digital mapping resource, and this will be done using Google Maps, to promote public engagement and education regarding Ayrshire's prehistoric heritage, and to explore the use of modern technology in enhancing access to archaeological data. So in terms of the methods that I have used for this research, most of it has been desk-based, and I've been using the online resources from Canmore, PassMap and the West of Scotland Archaeological Service. These are all great databases and maps for documenting some of the sites. However, they do lack functionality in terms of you can't really use them to look at specific time periods, which is quite frustrating if you are trying to find out something specific and try and see some patterns in the landscape. I've also been looking at numerous publications, journals, excavation reports, basically anything I can really get my hands on that is available in the public domain and online as well. I've also managed to do some site visits, particularly round about the central area. So the main reason for doing this is to try and determine how much of this archaeology is still visible at ground level. Can you visit these sites? Is there anything still to see? And this has been reflected in the map as well, which we'll talk about later on. Another part of this is to create a new digital map for the public to access, and this is aiming to have all the information about these sites centrally. So it does have links to the Canmore databases as well as the WOSAS entries, which is great, but it also has its other functionalities as well. And part of the methods was also to arrange an in-person talk, which took place in August, and this was mainly to discuss the findings so far for the project and to gauge community interest, which I'm delighted to say seems to be really positive. So my interest in archaeology has always been from a community-focused background, and I've always believed that community involvement with local heritage sites can be extremely beneficial for everybody that's involved. I'm lucky enough to be able to carry out a lot of community engagement with archaeology in my role here as the Archaeology Officer at the Friends of Dundonald Castle. And based on work carried out here, as well as conversations with many people in the community, it's really clear there's an interest in archaeology. And yeah, it's great to be able to take this a little bit further with my own research. So the timeline that we're looking at for this project is from the Mesolithic period through to the end of the Iron Age. So in general, we're looking at from around 10,800 BC through to 400 AD. Now, the whole point of creating this new mapping system was to be able to document these finds chronologically and assign them hopefully to each of these areas. This has proved a little bit more challenging than I initially thought, but I will go into that when we do start talking about the mapping resource shortly. So the hidden Prehistoric Ayrshire project is hopefully going to get the chance to look at the whole of Ayrshire. However, due to time constraints, I've only been able to look at quite a small area, in particular for the dissertation part of it. So for the purposes of the project so far, I have looked as far north as Colwinning, including Stevenson and Ardere, Irvine, as far east as the outskirts of Dreghorn, and in the south we go as far as Moncton. After all the research has been done for my dissertation, I do hope to keep populating this map in my own time, and if anybody does have any sites that they would like to recommend that get included or for me to look at, please do get in touch. It would be great if we could make this a real community effort to populate this map. So let's take a little more detailed look at some of the finds and locations in South Ayrshire. So again, this is not an extensive list. This is only the stuff that's been found within the study area. So I know there's some amazing sites and finds that haven't made it onto this list, but this is purely just looking at the study area for the dissertation at the moment. Feel free to pause this slide and read through it if it's easier to do so. So in Troon, we have flint scrapers, Roman coins, flint arrowheads. There's also a socketed axe head made of bronze, some axe heads made of stone, an enclosure and a flint scatter. In Brassey, there's pits, roundhouses, pottery, Bronze Age urn. We're going to go and talk a little bit more about this site in particular in the next couple of slides. At Lowens and Harpercroft, we have some hill forts, earthworks, and a quern. The quern was found near Simonton. In Shulton, which is one of the case studies for the dissertation, there are multiple lithic scatters, probably dating to the Mesolithic period. Pottery scatters, there's a roundhouse, at least one, if not a couple more. There's a saddle quern. The saddle quern, I'm pretty sure, was made from dolerite. There's ditches, kiln, pits belonging to or dating back to the Neolithic and Bronze Age, and a Bronze Age pot. There's also a number of there's a number of bronze items found as well. Some of these are quite jewellery-like in style. In Dundonald, there was a stone lamp found in somebody's back garden on Main Street. There's the roundhouses in Hillfort on Dundonald Castle Hill, so they now sit below where the current castle is, and an axe hammer as well. So there's lots happening in this very small area. So in terms of North Ayrshire then, some key locations and finds, and again, only looking at a very small area. We have some exciting things happen at Dry Bridge. So there's a Neolithic Cursus monument. We've got henges, ring ditches. We've got the Standing Stone, which stands just as you go over the hill on the left-hand side. There's axe hammers, lots of flints again happening around about here, roundhouse, and an axe head made of flint as well. In Dreghorn, which is another case study for the dissertation, we have the Neolithic settlement at Station Bray. There's also been flints found near the River Irvine and a spindle whorl found at the Alnwick Water. In Lawthorn, there is a probable Bronze Age barrow, and just up from that, there's Montgomery Park, which is a new housing development where they've found a number of prehistoric finds, including a kist, an enclosure, some human remains. There's also pits, post holes, there's linear features, and there's debitage as well, associated with flint knapping and the making of stone tools. Just north from that, we have Eglinton Park, and here there was an axe hammer found, another barrow, there's a cinerary urn, flints, including a scraper, and blade as well. So again, we do have multiple finds in this area. The study area unfortunately hasn't quite reached as far as East Ayrshire yet, but that is something that the next stage of the research will look to include. So in this slide, we can see a snapshot of the project's map, and this has been created using my Google Maps. The main reason for using Google Maps is that most people can access it on their handheld devices, whether it's tablets, phones, online, using a PC, but it's fairly easy to access, and it's a free resource as well. The point of creating the map using this platform is also because we can create chronological layers that can be turned on or off depending on what period the person is interested in. So if you're interested in particularly Bronze Age finds, then you can turn all the other layers off so that you're only seeing the Bronze Age finds. It's hoped that once all the sites have been documented across Ayrshire, this will make it easier to highlight patterns and locations of the finds as well. What's important to remember though is that although the points here represent sites and finds that have been found, either through excavation or by chance, the map can't show us what's not been found yet. So just because there's not a point on the map, it doesn't mean something doesn't exist there. So it's always worth remembering that just because something hasn't been found yet, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So there's probably plenty of holes in this map where we just haven't found the information yet. This map in particular is giving an overview of sites and finds of Barassi, Loans and Dundonald. So most of these we've just spoken about in the key locations and finds. But in particular, I wanted to draw attention to the site of Barassi, which is this site here. Apologies, I know that the map's not great in terms of scale for this slide. However, if you want to, you can go and check this map out on the website as well, and there'll be links for that at the end of today. And if you've managed to find that already, fantastic, you can look in it a little bit more detail. But at this site, there were 3 roundhouses found, as well as 19 discrete pits, 16 post holes, 2 stake holes, and a number of ceramics and lithics. What's interesting about this site though is that they've found material dating back from the Mesolithic period all the way through to the early Bronze Age, which suggests that this site was in use across a couple of millennia. What we can't determine from the finds and the information about them online is whether it was in continuous use or whether it was a seasonal site, so that definitely warrants some further investigation. In this area, we've also got a number of axes, so I'm pretty sure there are 3 on here. But again, if you're interested to find out more about where these have been found, you can check out the map. We also have a number of hill forts in this area. So we have, if I can see them enough, These two, this is Wardlaw Hill and this is Harpercroft. Coming down here, we also have an earthworks. So that's just down as you're heading over the Loans Road down towards Highgrove. That's down there. I haven't managed to visit this site yet to see if there is anything still standing or not. This little dot here is Kemplaw Dun. Kemplaw is a bit of a strange one because we're not quite sure whether it is a fort or whether it is possibly an excarnation platform, so where they would have taken their dead and left them to the natural elements before they would take the bodies and burn them. This little point up here, this is Dundonald Castle, where we do have Bronze Age houses and an Iron Age hill fort. These two were new for me, so coming out here we have a possible fort at Parkthorn. So unfortunately this one isn't visible anymore. It has been, we've lost that due to housing developments, but it would have been interesting to find out a little bit more about that. And down here we have a prehistoric mound at Hill House. So again, there's quite a lot happening in this area. There's also been a number of cinerary urns found close to the shoreline. There's one up here near Irving Gales, and there's another one, I think it's down here or down here. And these both contained burnt bone fragments as well. So to find out more about each of these points on the map, you just need to head to the map and click on one of the location markers, and it should bring up an information panel either above the point itself or to the left of your screen. And this information has links to the Canmore and WOSAS database entries where they are available, and some further reading sources as well, which have been taken directly from the databases as well. So interestingly, we can add images to these information panels. However, accessing images regarding any of the sites has proven really near impossible to find during this research, and it's just typically these images just aren't available in the public domain. So as much as I would love to be able to add images and videos to that, it's not possible at this time. So we're going to move a little bit further north now and look at Shulton Dry Bridge and Holmes. This map has a little bit more colour on it. We have a lot more coloured locations here, and each of the different colours refers to a different time period. So the Mesolithic period are yellow fines or yellow fine spots. Purple is Neolithic. I don't think we have any Iron Age or Bronze Age on this map, but the Iron Age is green, the Bronze Age is blue, and anything in grey is something that is likely prehistoric, but we haven't been given enough information about it to determine which chronology it would fit in. So the Mesolithic finds we have here mostly refer to flint scatters or flint finds. This one in particular, there were over 40 flints found, and some of these were blades and cores. Most of the Mesolithic finds actually follow the trail of the River Irvine as well, which is quite interesting. In terms of the Neolithic, up here we have the Cursus Monument. Down here is where they were doing some developer work for a new field of solar panels, and they discovered some Neolithic material in the field during that investigation. And up in the north here, we have the Neolithic settlement at Station Bray, which is a case study we're going to go into in the next couple of slides. So the case study that I'm going to focus on for this presentation is Station Bray in Dreghorn. This is one of 3 case studies that I'm looking at for my project. So the case of Station Bray is, the site is something that really started this whole research project for me and caused a lot of the frustrations that led to me wanting to find out more about prehistory in this area. So I'll take you through it and you can possibly find out why. So for context, the site we're talking about is here. So for anybody that's familiar with Dreghorn Church, it's just down the hill from there, so that's the octagonal church. And it's south of the new Dreghorn Cemetery, so it sits just up in the ridge up there. This is the Alnwick Water here. This is the River Irvine coming around here. To the south we've got Dry Bridge, to the north we've got Burter Hill, to the west we've got Irvine Town Centre, and to the east we have Springside. So back in 2003-2004, archaeological investigations were taking place at the site of Station Bray Gardens in Dreghorn in advance of 53 new houses being built by Wimpey Homes. So they were expecting to find some archaeological remains here, mostly dating to the medieval period, because Dreghorn is known as being a medieval village. So they were anticipating coming across some archaeology, but they weren't anticipating coming across as much prehistoric material as what they did. The site itself sits around 12 metres above the Alnwick Water. So if we look at the pictures here, this is the Alnwick Water, and this is where the water runs. The river runs just behind here at the north of the cemetery, and the site that we're talking about sits up in this ridge line. So over to the east, in this direction, so the left of your screen is east, this is where the new houses are, and to the right is heading back into Irvine Town Centre. So this is generally the area that we're talking about. So prior to this development work, very few prehistoric finds had been found in the village. However, this site was to become a huge discovery, and it would be commented in the press that it would be comparable to those sites such as Balbride, the Claish, Crathis, and some smaller examples at Balfarg and Raigmore. This is mostly because of the discovery of a probable timber hall dating to the Neolithic period in Scotland, so roughly 3,500 BC. The prehistoric remains at this site were also described as being in a density and scale seldom seen in Scotland. So you would think it would be a pretty important site that we would find out lots about. Everybody was very excited about it at the time. So some of the key findings of the site is the main one being the timber hall structure. So this was one of the most remarkable finds. It is thought to have measured about 23.5 metres by 5 metres and comprised of 3 rows of parallel, regularly spaced post holes. The timber hall feature itself was aligned north-south, and it was thought that the entranceway probably would have been on the west side. Artefacts were recovered, but only from 2 pits at the north of the feature. So none of the post holes gave out any artefacts themselves. And there was also, in those 2 pits at the north, they found a lot of carbonised remains and a large quantity of grooved ware pottery. On the site, they also found a number of circular pit-defined structures. They decided that these weren't roundhouses because they didn't have a hearth feature, but there was around 8 to 12 of these structures, and they all measured around 6 metres in diameter. In terms of the pottery, there was a huge collection of pottery found here with over 750 pieces of grooved ware pottery, as well as some carinated bowls. The site was really renowned at the time and people were really excited about it, and it was also referred to as possibly becoming a reference point for studying this pottery type because there was just so much material found. What's interesting though is that they found this grooved ware material in association with the timber hall, and that's not something that we generally see in the Neolithic period. So to find these finds together was really exciting for archaeologists. As well as some pottery, there was a number of lithic tools found, and these came in a different variety. So we had some scrapers, arrowheads, knives, but there was no evidence of these being worked on site. Some of the stone that was used for these tools included local flint and pitchstone, quartz, chert, and they also found some imported flint from Northern England and Ireland as well, which suggests a trade connection, which is quite exciting. On site, they also found what they described as a probable kiln. So this was a large oval hearth feature and was roughly about 1.8 by 1.2 metres. It's thought to be of a type that was really unique and hadn't been discovered elsewhere in Scotland. I haven't had the chance yet to do the research on that and see if this is something that has been discovered since. This investigation was happening over 20 years ago, so it is possible that something similar has been found. But the reason that they are suggesting that it's maybe a kiln and not just a large hearth is because in the fills surrounding the feature, they found some evidence of in situ burning, but only heavily refired pottery shards were found in the feature. So they didn't find anything really domestic like bones and broken pottery and stuff that you would associate with a typical hearth. The size of the feature, as well as the lack of these domestic finds, has led the archaeologists at the time to believe that it was probably a pottery kiln, so they were actually using this hearth to fire the pottery on site. On the site as well, although it wasn't fully excavated, they think they found a possible palisaded enclosure, and this was thought to measure about 16 metres wide, and this is up on this ridgy area as well. The only artefactual evidence found from this area was from a slot here, so this is one of the features that wasn't fully excavated as part of the excavations. All it says in the report that we're given is that on the ridge to the extreme west of the site, part of a probable palisaded enclosure was discovered. Grooved ware was the only artefactual evidence recovered from this slot, and that the majority of this potential feature was not excavated, but it's thought to have been at least 16 metres wide. So, despite this amazing number of finds that we have here, some really exciting structures, nothing really ever emerged from this. All we have to go on at the moment is the Discovery and Excavation Scotland entry, which is available on Canmore, but no further publication has been published based on the amazing findings here, which is quite frustrating because it would be great to find out more about this. So Station Bray is a great example of a site that has been found to be of potentially national significance, but for whatever reason, no further work has been undertaken. At this point, the large number of finds associated with excavations as well are being stored, and nobody's quite sure where they are, and it would really make any further research at this stage difficult. Although the DES entry, so the Discovery and Excavation Scotland entry, is fairly detailed, it does highlight the scale of the site, but it must only be a really small snapshot of the data that was collected at this site and doesn't contain any photographs, drawings, sketches that would have been collected as part of the excavation. The information that is available in the public domain also fails to recognise the importance of the wider landscape. So some of the sites that we have identified in this talk doesn't mention Shulton, it doesn't mention Dry Bridge, which were sites that, if they were in use before this timber hall structure, they certainly come into use after it. But yeah, there's no reference to the wider landscape at all in that report. And this is sadly something that we do see across a lot of the data that is available online, is that it's very focused on that one find, that one site, and doesn't really tie into the wider prehistoric landscape, which means we're not able to build up that full story and connect the dots. So yeah, hopefully Station Bray will be a project for future investigation, but at the moment I am very much focusing on my dissertation project, and these are some of the questions that I am asking of it. So I'm trying to determine what are some of the key prehistoric sites and finds in Ayrshire, and what is their historical and cultural significance? What are the current challenges in preserving and promoting prehistoric sites in Ayrshire and Arran, and how can they be addressed? How can modern technology, so things like digital mapping, how can these be used to enhance accessibility and understanding of these sites? And also, in what ways can public engagement initiatives be developed to foster a greater appreciation of Ayrshires prehistoric past? So part of my project is to try and make this information accessible and public. And so I've had the chance to create a website for the project, and that is hiddenprehistoricayrshire.wordpress.com. On the website, you can click on to the map, so this will take you to the Google Maps, and you can play around with the sites, find out what's there. There will also be some project updates, so if I am ever doing some talks or if I find anything particularly interesting, I am hoping to update the website with that. And there's also a little bit there about the project as well. So if it is something you're interested in, feel free to keep up to date on the website, and that my contact details are on there as well if there is anything that you think I should be looking at as part of this project. So that is a really quick overview of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of months. Like I said, I really do hope to continue this research, and I would love to hear what you think about it. Do you think that it's going to be useful? Are you interested in it? So if you could take a couple of minutes and fill out the survey, either use the QR code on the screen, or this link is also available on the website as well. So if you head over there, fill out the survey, that would be extremely useful, and there is the opportunity to provide suggestions as well for sites. My student email address is 209165w@student.gla.ac.uk. Feel free to get in touch with me there. And there's the link to the website again. So thank you so much for getting all the way through this and listening to me talk about the project. Really looking forward to see what else can be discovered as part of this. And hopefully I can bring you all along with me on the journey. So yeah, thank you again.